If you've been watching this channel for any period of time, you'll know that I'm kind of obsessed with this idea of blurring the line between reality and virtual reality. I've shown the highest end of VR, and I've talked about how eventually we'll all have this reality-altering technology at home. And well, I've got a bit of an update on that, and it's from a pretty unlikely source. After some convincing, I got HTC to let me show off what they've been working on under the hood. A trippy reality-bending experience that turned the real world around me into a virtual playground, fusing the digital and physical with mixed reality, in a way that before this was only accessible by the highest end of hardware, which is just about inaccessible to everyone. But that's not it. We also get to see firsthand a VR device that's the first of its kind ever, a self-tracking tracker that I think is going to change a lot more than just full body tracking. And none of this stuff is on the market yet. It's all pretty secretive. So we're gonna have to head all the way to San Francisco to try all this stuff out. So I think we're all familiar with typical virtual reality and VR headsets, putting on a device and you're in a game or simulation and the outside world is completely shut out. But there's been a pretty massive push recently for not only virtual reality, but mixed reality. Basically, every upcoming headset has it in some way. And because of this, you've probably heard the term XR thrown around. And to put it simply, VR equals virtual reality, AR equals augmented reality, and XR is sort of crossover between the two. Essentially, mixed reality. And this is great and all, but for the most part, mixed reality right now is just not very good. Black and white pass-through and grainy, blurry messes don't do a very good job of mixing reality. It's usable, just not very convincing. However, if you go all the way to the highest end of XR devices possible, you'll end up at the Vario XR3, which is the single device that got me really excited for the mixing of realities. Using dual LiDAR cameras and the insane resolution of that headset, MR is not only convincing, but the experiences can be terrifyingly convincing. Occasionally, you'll come across something within that headset and legitimately not be able to tell the difference between reality and virtual. It really messes with your head, and once that happens a couple of times, yeah, mixed reality starts sounding pretty exciting. But there's a pretty big problem. The XR3 is an $8,000 enterprise headset that also needs a pretty beefy PC to even power. It's cool, and it's become my pseudo bar to hit for devices, but it's completely inaccessible. And since making all of my Vario videos, I have had one hope, and that's to be able to see the highest end of features eventually trickle down to every headset. And this is the first time I've actually seen that happen. So this is the XR Elite mixed reality demo. This isn't a review of this headset, don't worry, we'll get to that eventually. I've got a lot of things I need to address regarding it. Instead, I want to focus on a really cool, trippy experience. The exciting thing of blending realities isn't decades away. It's not even years away. It's here right now.
Holy cow. That is so cool.
So this headset has one thing that others just don't, and that's a depth sensor. The same type of sensor the Quest Pro was supposed to have before they ripped it out last minute, because apparently it can be used as some sort of X-ray to see through clothes. But in general, beyond any creepy possible use cases, it does make mixed reality better. I've already shown off a bit of how decent the pass-through looks on this headset, but the true magic starts when portals start opening on real walls and objects start flying out of them. And while this doesn't look realistic per se, it's surprisingly convincing, and I was a little shocked when the table turned into a whack-a-mole-like section. It's almost like my brain expected to be touching something. There's obviously nothing there, and I know that. But when my brain's visual system that was developed a million years ago sees something right in front of me that's moderately convincing and I touch it, well, weird stuff happens in the back of my brain and it's kind of out of my control. And I get a pretty similar experience to something like the XR3. Pass-through doesn't look quite real, like I can tell I'm staring at reality through a screen through cameras, but because of that, it makes things that are definitely not real just look and feel a little more convincing. It's like a hyper reality. It closes the gap a little bit, and touching objects while seeing my hands pass over things leaves me with this tingly sensation that's hard to pinpoint exactly. But I think the weirdest part of the experience was opening a portal on the wall and seeing a bird just fly in and out of it.
There's a wall here.
It's something I completely didn't realize while I was in the demo, but to everyone else in the room, I was pretty much just staring at a wall for a few minutes, peering into a virtual portal. It's really an interesting feeling watching the world around you open up in a way that makes sense geometrically, but virtually. And of course, I can only imagine the weird use cases that mixed reality like this can offer. From reality portals to masking in objects, to windows between games, or even entirely mixed reality games. Like, I just imagine some horror game with mixed reality and you're running in your own house away from something. I don't know, just a thought. But that wasn't the only thing I got to test. Next up is something that I have been asking for years. A lot of people said it was impossible, some people even said it was stupid, but none of that matters anymore. Here it is. This is what I'm calling the Vive Tracker S for standalone. They actually don't have a name for it yet, so I guess I'm naming it. So I've been a big fan of full body tracking for a long time, as I'm sure you know. And as camera-based tracking for headsets catches on as pretty much the norm, I've wondered, why not just throw a couple cameras on a tracker and track those the exact same way the headsets do? And well, here we are. So I know for people that don't really care about full body tracking, a new Vive Tracker may seem a little boring or inconsequential, but I want you to instead think of this as a tool that we've never had before in VR. Imagine just for a moment being able to track anything, anywhere, in conjunction with any hardware with perfect sub-millimeter accuracy. Could be your legs, of course, could be a coffee cup so you can see it in VR, could be a camera used for virtual production, or it could be used to turn anything into a controller. The potential is kind of limitless. And previously, the only way to do this was with Vive trackers and base stations, which are expensive and require a controlled environment. And of course, there are other solutions, but they're either significantly less accurate or limited, or significantly more expensive, which is why this newest SLAM-based tracker is kind of a big deal. SLAM being simultaneous localization and mapping. With 2 cameras and a built-in processor and their own built-in battery, they're their own unit. It's kind of like having a few Quest Pro controllers strapped to your body. And the tracking quality with the Vive Tracker S felt the exact same as a typical Vive tracker. It actually felt kind of weird having these on, knowing what they are, because through all my testing of interesting tracking solutions that I've tried over the years, compared to any IMU array or Kinect or webcams, there's just nothing like putting on a Vive tracker. If you know, you know. And you can tell immediately the tracking quality difference. But that's not just it. The really exciting thing here is that they're compatible with any headset. For the first time, you could have base station quality full body tracking, for example, just without any base stations. Unfortunately though, I did only get to try one demo with them, that being a soccer game, but I really tried to put these through the paces. You can see that even moving them around or trying them in different positions or even occluding the cameras, these trackers do surprisingly well, like sub-millimeter Vive tracker level well. And not gonna lie, this does kind of have me looking at my base stations a little funny. But again, I want to talk about the really exciting part about these. They're entirely standalone. They don't even have to be connected to a VR headset to be tracking spatially. You just have this cool little puck that knows where it's at in space at all times. You can use them in all the same ways we've used Vive trackers for years, but of course, because they're standalone and don't require to be in line of sight of base stations, the use cases are kind of expanded. Throw them on a set of paddles, turn a beanbag into a tracked object in VR, throw them on a cat. I don't know, I just find it extremely cool. The ones I tested are of course just engineering units, and I didn't get to try anything else out with them. Would have loved to hop into VR chat, but that'll have to be for another day. We also don't really have much information on them. We don't know the specifications or what processor or the battery life. They don't have a ship date or price yet, but Q3 of this year seems likely, and I can actually imagine these being a little more expensive than a typical Vive tracker. They've just got more internal hardware. But if you're wanting that fidelity of full body tracking and you're on something like the Quest 2, this is still probably going to be a better deal. And IMU tracking like Slime and Hartora is still totally valid, but those are only usable as full body tracking techniques. You can't really use them for much else. This, on the other hand, is a standalone spatial tracker. Another kind of cool, interesting thing is that you can actually connect 5 of these to a single dongle, either to a PC or directly to a standalone headset, which, if you're already in the world of full body, is kind of a big deal as is. But beyond any demo or piece of hardware, the overall theme here and why I even made this video, and I think the most exciting and important takeaway, is that really cool VR technology, the kind of stuff that I've been talking about and showing off for years, is just now becoming way more accessible. Just a year ago even, there was nothing even close to the Vario XR3 in terms of mixed reality capability. It was a device with profound experiences locked behind a paywall so high that I could only tell you about it. But things are now moving way faster than I anticipated. And now, even though this thing isn't at all perfect and it's not quite XR3 levels of fidelity, for a small fraction of the cost and without any PC at all, you can get pretty darn close. You're at like 85% of the experience for a 16th of the cost. And that's wild. This sort of thing has just never existed before. We've never had this sort of technology that's accessible to people. And same idea with these standalone trackers. Nothing like this has ever been made, but it's happening right now. And I think we're often caught up with successes and failures of hardware and how many sales something has. But we don't often stop to smell the roses, I guess, to look at how far we've come, to look at how cool the technology that we have right now is, and at how fast we're moving technologically. If this is where we're at now, well, we got a very exciting, but also maybe a little terrifying next decade ahead of us. And similar to the video I made last year on the Vario XR3's mixed reality, things are about to get a whole lot weirder pretty soon here. Meta's entire new headset is pretty much a mixed reality headset, and that's a device that will be in more people's hands than any before it ever. It's something that not many people are talking about because mixed reality isn't this sexy thing. I don't think it's easy to really talk about unless you experience it. But right now we're watching the previously inaccessible technology become the norm, which makes me wonder what's behind closed doors, because this is where we're at right now, and I don't know if we're even ready for that, let alone what I know is brewing out there. So this was a bit of a different video from the normal thing. I'm just kind of having fun, trying new things out, but I had this really cool experience that I wanted to share with you all, and a piece of hardware that I'm just legitimately really excited about. So yeah, it's also really nice to see HTC kind of making a comeback, at least in the consumer side of things. They've kind of had a real identity crisis the past few years, pretty much ever since the flop of the Cosmos. And while they still got a lot of work to do, they're doing some really cool things, and I don't see anybody else doing it. And I can appreciate that. I can also appreciate them letting me in and testing out a bunch of stuff, letting me film it. I was already in town for GDC, so it all kind of worked out. And plus, we got a cool video out of it. But other than that, let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, I want to say thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. I couldn't do any of this without you. And to give back to you guys, I got some new videos coming up pretty soon here that I think you'll really enjoy in the Patreon. But until next time, have a really great weekend. Much love, Drill out.